As of June 2026, the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East is entering a new phase. With regional peace agreements taking hold, Syria is pivoting toward national reconstruction and transitional justice. But before rebuilding can begin, international law and reconstruction frameworks require an exact empirical ledger of the physical damage incurred during a decade and a half of war. Assessing modern infrastructure is difficult enough, but mapping the loss of cultural heritage presents one of the most complex challenges for post-war planners. To understand the true scale of this problem, we have to look at the Daraa region on Syria's southern border. This specific province holds a truly dense network of Roman, Byzantine, and Islamic archaeological sites, anchoring millennia of regional history. It is also the geographical cradle of the Syrian conflict, enduring some of the most intense, protracted, and highly militarized battles of the entire war. Stabilizing Daraa's cultural identity requires knowing exactly how those ancient sites were damaged in the Crossfire. The prevailing assumption among analysts is that in heavily contested zones, heritage sites are obliterated by direct military action, artillery shells, airstrikes, and mechanized combat. To test this premise, researchers conducted a massive, high-resolution satellite survey, tracking 196 distinct archaeological sites across the Daraa Province. They analyzed time series imagery spanning from 2004 to 2022, capturing the timeline of the conflict and the years leading up to it. The data reveals a stark paradox. Direct military action accounts for a remarkably small fraction of the total visible damage to these sites. Instead of craters from bombed-out ruins, the satellite imagery shows entirely different patterns of landscape scarring. The actual primary threats identified at the survey are a massive surge in civilian manual looting and agricultural, specifically pastoral, encroachment. This damage was highly opportunistic. It was driven by the total collapse of local authority and regional stability, rather than any strategic military objective. The primary vector of heritage loss here was the severe socio-economic collapse the Crossfire left behind. We can see this mechanism clearly in the raw numbers. The survey recorded a total of 1,632 distinct instances of damage across the region. This chart shows the overarching categories of damage. The immense scale of looting and agricultural/pastoral dominates the graph, dwarfing the military category. Researchers logged over 600 instances of looting and nearly 600 of pastoral damage, while military clearance accounted for only 119. While satellite data inherently underreports interior structural shelling, the macro trend remains undeniably skewed towards civilian activity. This profile contrasts sharply with the heritage destruction seen in northern Syria under centralized extremist control. In the north, destruction often took the form of massive, machinery-driven excavation programs. The southern conflict zone operated completely differently. Looking at the breakdown of the specific damage causes, there is a massive spike in excavation by hand compared to excavation by bulldozing or machinery. The quantitative data redefines southern Syria's threat profile. These sites were dismantled by decentralized, desperate civilian actors using hand tools, rather than organized, mechanized syndicates. Tracking this manual, small-scale looting from orbit introduces a significant methodological hurdle, particularly in northeastern Daraa. The region is characterized by unique geology, sitting at the maximum western extension of the Jebel El Arab volcano. These basalt plateaus are littered with dark, natural volcanic rocks.
Many of the ancient structures here were built using the exact same material. At standard satellite resolutions, distinguishing between natural geological formations and human interference requires careful calibration. The shadows cast by natural depressions in the basalt perfectly mimic small manual looting pits on a pixel grid. To solve this, analysts scan the shadow's periphery for edge pixel reflectance changes, looking for the color signature of recently excavated dirt. Without this micro-level soil color analysis, the dataset would be overwhelmed by false positives. Macro-level satellite surveys require strict calibration to the micro-level geological realities of the terrain to produce reliable intelligence. This time series of Site D1 tracks the socio-economic drivers of destruction. The 2004 baseline shows an undisturbed tell. By 2012, transient pastoral tents appear. In 2016, physical disturbance begins, leading to an explosion of manual looting holes by 2019. The imagery establishes a recurring spatial correlation. The establishment of transient pastoral encampments frequently predates or co-occurs with the appearance of manual looting pits. The intense conflict and resulting power vacuum completely disrupted traditional, stable agriculture across the province. This disruption drove a rapid shift toward transient pastoralism. Civilians were pushed to occupy elevated, unmonitored archaeological tells for physical safety and viable grazing land. Prolonged physical proximity to these ancient ruins inevitably led to opportunistic digging by the temporary occupants. The exact same lack of local regulation that permitted unauthorized grazing directly enabled the subsequent manual excavation. Looking back at the provincial map, we can scale this pastoralism-looting correlation across Dara's macrogeography, particularly along wadis and watercourses. Heuristic models tracking the timeline of these damages show that pastoral and looting activities rise and fall in step with each other regionally. This opportunistic civilian damage extended far beyond ancient tells, threatening structural historical infrastructure. The historical Al-Hijaz Railway, which traverses the province, provides a clear example. Local rumors of buried Ottoman-era treasure drove desperate civilians to manually dig deep pits directly alongside the tracks. The systematic removal of hardware and the severe destabilization of the soil actively compromises the structural integrity of the railway itself. This specific degradation of infrastructure is entirely divorced from the tactical goals of any warring faction. The railway damage proves that economic desperation, rather than strategic military aims, operates as the primary driver of physical heritage loss during protracted conflicts. This data provides a distinct baseline for the transitional justice and reconstruction planners operating in 2026. Post-war frameworks cannot effectively protect cultural heritage by solely focusing on neutralizing kinetic military threats. Similarly, policies designed exclusively to ban heavy excavation machinery offers zero protection in regions dominated by manual, opportunistic digging. In a post-conflict environment, heritage destruction acts as a secondary infection. It takes hold when the socio-economic baseline of a population collapses. The mandate for reconstruction planners is clear. Cultural heritage protection must be integrated directly with agricultural and economic stabilization programs. You do not stop looting by simply assigning guards to the ruins. You stop the looting by addressing the severe economic vacuum that drives civilians to dig in the first place.